Well, let's get a good old all right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to RicCast. It is going to be a good Monday, the 12th of May, 2025. I hope everybody had a wonderful, restful Mother's Day weekend. Although, I'm not really, I mean, let me just it's a matriarchal holiday. Just get it out of the way. It's a matriarchal holiday, and we saw it with the celebration of womanhood. And I know, a lot of people are going to get mad at me for it. Oh, man, well, you can't celebrate Mother's Day. You whatever. I don't care. Mother's Day is obviously a beautiful holiday, but the way the society has shifted in such a manner that every every single thing is geared towards mother to begin with. It was just another day to promote matriarchy and tell men to shut up, sit down, and recognize the strong woman that exists. And if she did not exist, you would be indeed nothing. I think I'm a little more jaded because I ended up going to an NO mass, and the priest, instead of actually talking about, Good Shepherd Sunday, decided to spend his entire homily talking about mothers, to the point where he called them the first priest of the house. And I was like, my wife was trying to calm me down as that, because he was making females priests, and it was just a whole thing. And never good times when I have to go to that. It's a tough week when I have to go to those masses because, yeah. Anyway, if you know what I'm talking about, you understand. Do not worry about that, though. This is a Francis derangement syndrome free zone. I've coined that term. If anybody steals it from me, which other broadcasters have had a habit of stealing from me and not giving credit, in fact, for 4+ years, that was the case. But if anybody else says FDS, Francis derangement syndrome, I really should have. You Crockety, you're right. You're really right. I should have. Um, I know. You can take some man points away from me for just not. Yeah, you're right. I got nothing. I got nothing on that. You're really right on that one. So anyway, we got a good show. Maybe next week I will, but he's leaving. He's gonna be gone next week. So it is what it is. As you can tell, though, it still really bothers me. It really bothers me. No, honestly, my response is the same. You should have told him, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, I'm like, just offering it up, just saying, Lord, please forgive him. Please forgive him. He's just, he's not right. But we're going to have a good show. We're going to be talking about how Trump is slashing drug costs. The China-U.S. tariff war has been paused for like 90 days. We'll see how that goes. The Pope's brother, the liberal commie open borders brother Pope that everybody just can't wait to decry and hate and say, it came over, man. It's so terrible. He's a globalist. He's not mocking. Yeah, well, apparently his brother is like the most base man on the planet, which should give you an idea where that family comes from. We'll talk about that. And Hollywood begs Trump to relieve them of the tariff burden, which I think they shouldn't be, because I think they should squirm. Squirm, a little Hollywood, squirm away. But we will get to all of that and more here. Right? Every time that I see these people freaking out online about this, that, I had one guy. He's like, man, game over. He said he's going to continue the synod of synodality. Okay. In case you don't know, it's a terrible thing that Francis started. And it was one of the first things that Pope Leo XIV said in his first remarks to the College of Cardinals. And people were like, oh, no. My take, and I'm sure you can, get the warning out. Pope splainer alert. Here he comes. That was his first meeting in front of the College of Cardinals. And a lot of people don't understand that the papacy is as much of a political position as it is a spiritual position. And he didn't want to come right out and say all these things. So he said, yeah, sure, I'm interested in continuing it and moving on and so forth. And I think it was really lip service. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I'm not going to freak out about bridges that are potentially burned until I get to the burned bridges. We actually, as Catholics, are not allowed to be despondent about future events. Right? Pray, hope, and don't worry. A lot of pray, hope, and don't worry people turn into worry people when it doesn't fit their agenda. But I will say this, and once again, I could put the alarm on. Beware of many, and I'm gonna get in trouble. Whatever, I don't care. Beware of many people that are mad secretly, maybe, that Pope Leo the 14th is Pope. They made a lot of money for 12 years. This is what I'm saying, Lou. They wrong one. That was over. There was a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of people who made a lot of money and got famous on YouTube for pushing back against Francis, for being the resistance against Francis. We're not gonna let you take this stuff from us, Francis. Okay. Well, Francis is no longer the head of the church. Francis is dead and buried. Literally dead and buried. So I think there's a lot of people that are worried. I personally believe there's a lot of people that are worried. How are they going to continue to make money? It's like the Trump slump for conservatives. Liberals, MSNBC did really well in between 2016 and 2020 when Trump was in office. And then their ratings nosedive when Joe Biden was in office. Now their ratings are starting to go back up because Trump's in office. People don't like happy stuff. People want to be miserable. And there's some very good pat. Now, in defense, guys like Taylor Marshall said, hey, I pledge my fidelity to Pope Leo the 14th. And some others have done that too. But beware, there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to, anytime Leo the 14th does not do the most traditionally minded thing according to their view, they're going to blast out tweets. They're going to blast out videos. Now, this is not all of them. And if this person's ever listening to this and you get mad, then that's your problem. That's on you. That's not on me for pointing it out. I think you need to know that as well. So, it is what it is. And I don't even know. Oh yeah. Cause we're going to talk about Pope Leo the 14th brother. And I mentioned this to Jeremy from the Quartering. I tweeted at him because he's like, oh, his brother's based. And so I said, hey, you need to get Catholics on your show because you guys ran with he's a globalist and it's all over, man, because you don't have Catholics on. You don't have Catholics on. And so you've got a bunch of Protestants and non-practicing Catholics trying to interpret Catholicism. Like, no, that's not how it works, man. Get one of us on. It doesn't even get Taylor Marshall, get Tim, get any of them. I don't care. Get the guys from Avoiding Babylon. I don't give a crap. Just get somebody on that's actually a practicing Catholic so they can talk to you about this stuff. So we'll cover it here on RicCast this evening. Do me a favor, all over the place. Getter, YouTube, X, Rumble, my man on Twitch. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Help this show grow, guys. This show, I would like it to grow. Obviously, I love talking to you people. The more, the merrier. All right, let's get to our first story of the day. I've talked long enough. All right, first story. So Trump's a little bit of hot water on this one. Trump's done some good stuff. We're going to start with Trump hot water on this. And it is the situation involving a plane that is being gifted to President Trump by the Qatari royal family to serve as the new Air Force One. Now, I don't have pictures of this. I looked for pictures of it. This plane's pretty sweet. It's like one of these massively massive planes, and it's pretty much got Trump. It's Trump to a T on this, and it's really, really nice to look at. The problem is, it is it's a gift from the Qatari royal family. And that's weird. It's so bad that even psycho Laura Loomer, who does some good reporting, but she was one of the first to be like, the new Pope is not MAGA. Well, you're Jewish. You don't really know what you're talking about. So, but thank you, Pete. Please keep reporting stuff. Just stay away from Catholicism. She said, we cannot accept this $400 million gift from jihadists in suits. President Trump took the Truth Social defending said gift, saying, quote, the Defense Department is getting a gift, a free of charge, which I love free, a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Virgin Air Force One. I said, because I just saw that movie, temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction. So, brothers of the crooked it bothers the crooked Democrats. They insist we pay. Daily Mail has reported Trump plans to retain the plane for personal use after his presidency, with ownership transferring over to his presidential library at the end of his term. Now, I don't think he should actually use it. It's just one of those things. I know there's always a real problem with gifts for the president. Anything that's given to the president, to that particular president, jerseys, whatever the case may be, becomes property of the president. Now, the president can buy said gift after his presidency and keep it. In his case, he says he's going to put it in his presidential museum, probably at Mar-a-Lago or somewhere on the line. Thank you, Dean. You do me too much honor by saying that. It's really just a hyper baby when I do that. But it's interesting. This is like when Laura Loomer is pushing back on you, you know that this is going to be a big problem for him long term, because it could get him in trouble with different things, but just something to keep an eye on. It's a Boeing 747-8 in care. I know there's some airplane nerds out there. I am not one of said airplane nerds, but I just think airplanes are cool. But I don't know all the logistics about it, but apparently it's very nice. It's a very nice plane. So it is what it is. Let's move on to our second story here, ladies and gentlemen, continuing to move along. This is a bigger story right now, that the Trump administration defends white South African refugee program amid the group's U.S. revival. This is psychotic because Joe Biden dropped every race, creed, and color except white people across these United States for 4 years. He flew them into the country. He repopulated half of Haiti into Ohio, and it was crickets. But I think most of you know about the plight of the South Africana, the Boers. They did not take the land from anybody. They're descendants of the first people to actually colonize and make South Africa an actual functioning colony. And of course, the Africans there and the Rainbow Coalition and all that other kind of stuff, and the attacks on the white African farmers, and the fact that they're a minority there and they're being murdered and taken after and all these other kinds of things. So it's interesting that 59 white people are being brought in from Africa, South Africans, these are actual African Americans, and the press is losing it. The press is absolutely losing it in this regard, saying, you're just bringing in white people. Half the friggin' world was brought in over 4 years. We can't bring in white people? These white people actually have some kind of reason to be here. Their lives are in jeopardy. These are what refugees look like. And I'm sorry, it's because of the color of their skin. You don't like it because they don't look like Haitians or Dominicans or people from Chile or Venezuelans. They're actual people that need our help. And of course, the left is going to make this awful. A flight carrying 59 Afrikaners landed in the U.S. on Monday. A flight carrying these 59 refugees from South Africa landed in these United States on Monday afternoon, as the Trump administration insists that the expedited process for white South Africans to seek refuge in these United States has nothing to do with race. Of course, when it's expedient refugee status for everybody else, it's noble, it's good, it needed to happen. But when the skin melatonin, when the skin color is a little bit paler, now this is Oh, you can't do this. You're doing it because they're white. Yeah, right. They think South Africans must be black. I mean, Charlize Theron's South African. Elon Musk is South African. They're not all black people. The South African refugees' arrival also comes amid the administration's effort to halt refugee programs from other countries. Yes, because the quote unquote refugee situation of those other countries are not, in fact, they're economic refugees, which you can start playing the word game. Well, they're economic refugees versus refugees. But the people in South Africa, if they stay there, they will die. The Venezuelan or the Guatemalan or the Dominican, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to die if they stay where they are. And there's nowhere else in Africa that these Afrikaners would technically be safe right now. There's no other country in Africa that would take these people in, which is why they're brought here. I think you should import however many they are. You take every single white South African, take them out of South Africa because they're not wanted there. I know there are people like, this is my country. I'm going to fight for it. I'm down. You do that. You do what you got to do. Every single one that wants to come in there, drop them in the state of Georgia. Drop them in the state of Georgia, or drop every single one. Give them one of the old ghost towns in like the Northwest or the Northeast part of Georgia. I guarantee you it'll be one of the most prosperous places in Georgia in 20 years. Yeah, that's the crazy thing. You're right. The South African refugees don't want to leave because they love their homeland. The problem is they don't have access to firearms. They have no governmental recourse because the majority population, which is black, refuses to vote for white candidates. And the majority powers hate. I can't play it on YouTube, but there's the songs where they say, unalive the boar, and there's a stadium full of people singing it. They have no choice. They have to be evacuated, or that entire race and culture of people will be eliminated from the earth. But I'm telling you, you can drop them in Georgia. I say take every single white South African and drop them in New Mexico. They have experience farming. They have experience work. They would turn that state red in 2 generations. You drop the majority there, give them the old ghost towns, give them the infrastructure. I guarantee you they'd make it work. They would make it work because they've made it work in South Africa with rolling blackouts, no ability to do anything. And technically, you could call it a genocide. Because there's no defense for these people. Or as they did during the Rwandan genocide, acts of genocide, like they said. So they didn't want to call it a genocide. Anyway, this is another thing that's making the left super mad about this. Check this out. They came in today. And, oh my God. They have children. They understand that they're fortunate enough to be here. Now, wherever they land, I'm just saying this, I'm on my own observation. Every single one of these South Africans, every family, they need to immediately, as soon as they're able to, buy firearms and get courses, because I believe they're going to be targeted.
This is the land of the free.
Hold on, I think they're actually talking.
All of you have faced. I'm Chris Landau. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm the Deputy Secretary of State of the United States. This is my friend Troy Edgar.
Yeah, I'm the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security.
Anyway, you can't really hear him, so I don't want to. I think they're going to be in danger because the left's going to target them. They're going to dox them. They're going to make their life miserable. So I think they need some kind of actual some protection from the federal government right now. Yeah, this happened in there. That happened Rhodesia, anywhere that those people are in Zimbabwe. They were begging the white farmers to come back. They're like, "We're sorry, please come back, please come back, please come back," because the land is not tenable. It's happening there too, and it's not because the Africans are stupid. It's because they don't learn. They don't want to learn how to do it. They just want this stuff to happen. But I think they need some kind of protection. They need to be able to defend themselves here. They should be able to. But wherever they land, gun tubers need to go over there and teach them how to use firearms. not even teach them about U.S. law with firearms, self-defense. That's why I'm saying drop them in a red state that's got a stand your ground law, and let them be able to protect themselves. That's the whole reason to bring them over here. But caused a massive pushback by the left. They are so angry about this whole thing. Hours before the flight arrived at Dulles International Airport, President Trump defended his administration's decision to offer refugee status to the Afrikaners, a white minority group in South Africa. The president said the asylum program is because of the race-based genocide in the country. Quote, they happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed and their land is being confiscated, means taken away, in South Africa, and the newspapers and the media and television doesn't even talk about it. This is true. Because the nasty little secret is that the left-wing media likes it. They want to see it happen. They want to see these white Africans erased from the earth. They do. Maybe not the individual people on the television, but the networks that run them, that is the idea. Yeah, it's all about minorities until the skin color is a little bit lighter than they want it to be. So we're going to keep our eye on this as they are settled. And the fact that they're not even off the plane and they're already being targeted by the left-wing media. They're already being targeted. When it was everybody else, when people were pouring over the border, when every minority on the planet, we were Chinese, the only Russians, whatever, that's fine. Bring them in. They need to come here. These people come in. Oh, is this race? Do you have any idea? Lauren Southern, who I can't stand, actually did a great documentary on YouTube. I think it's called Borderlands. It's one of the few things that I actually respect she did. Very well put together on that. Explains the whole thing. If you don't know this whole thing on the Africans, the South Africans, watch Borderlands by Lauren Southern. But these people are being genocide. They need protection. Their culture needs to be saved. Let them be like the Amish. Let them pick out any place in a red state. Let them have the land and let them develop it. It will be a sustainable, flourishing county in 20 years. So I'm glad they're here. Because they were in danger. And I like it also because the left is seethingly mad. They're so mad. I forgot this. Check this out. The Episcopal Church has announced it will end its decades-old partnership with the government to resettle refugees, citing moral opposition to resettling white Afrikaners from South Africa. I'm sorry, what? How much money have you taken from the federal government to resettle anybody and everybody? But now that they're white people, the Episcopal Church is going to be like, nah, this is a little too far. Can't do this. That's racism. That's racism right there. These people should be sued into the dirt. That people don't want to hear, but that is 100% racism. We're not resettling them because they're white. It's unbelievable. And this is the kind of hatred. These poor people didn't want any of this. These South Africans, as we've said, if they had their way, they would just be left alone on their farms in South Africa in peace. But they are being targeted for their race. And when they come here, they can't even escape it because of the liberal media. It's sickening. And that's another reason why they actually need the refugee status. Unbelievable. The Episcopal Church has got a set on them to be like, yeah, we're not going to help these people out. These people, they must have privilege because of their skin color. Just mind numbing, this kind of stuff. So you got to give good Trump on that one. I'm going to give Trump a thumbs up. Good Trump on helping out the South Africans. I think, and maybe Elon Musk has something to do with that, being from South Africa. But it's ridiculous. These people need help. And everywhere they go, nobody wants to help them because oh, well, you're white. Well, they're a minority in South Africa. It's a minority culture. You guys are supposed to be about that. But apparently their empathy only goes so far. All right, folks, let's get to our next story of the night. Good evening, G Money. Holla. And yes, that is what is. You had an earlier story about Air Force One. Temporary. It's a temporary thing. It's not full time. The reason is because Boeing can't make the new Air Force One because Boeing can't even make a paper plane at this point, let alone anything else. So it's not a permanent thing. It would be temporary. Trump said he would keep it after it was done being used as Air Force One and then put it in his presidential museum. So that's where that whole thing comes from. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it. Boom. This is a pretty huge story today. And I should have had the actual, maybe I can find it while I'm talking here. So Trump today did something. He completely destroyed Bernie Sanders' entire campaign, his entire campaign. So what has the Democratic Party been running on for 40 plus years? Oh, the drug prices, they're terrible. We need to make the drug prices good so they can help people out. Yet both sides, just like abortion, just like gun control, just like the Supreme Court, just like anything else, has been using this to gain votes. And when they get into power, they go, oh, well, we really can't do anything about it, guys. I'm sorry. We can't do anything about this now. And it's a shame. So it's just one of these things that nobody wants to actually admit that they were being played for so long. And Trump with an executive order was just like, yeah, no more. Can't do it. And people are legitimately using that, as they should, because this is an issue that they can't run on anymore. This is an issue. Yeah, I know. G Money, you missed the one that I actually need you on. I needed you on that one. Anyway, let's take a listen real quick, see what this guy has to say.
When Americans were American, but not the Trump call. Trump signed an executive order today revoking Executive Order 14087 of October 14th, 2022, lowering prescription drug costs. And you tried to lie years ago when President Biden signed that, lowering prescription drug costs for all Americans, not just Democrats. You're like that guy on our team that scores on himself, and you applaud. You do. You don't even know who to hate anymore. You used to hate global elitists. Trump's front row at his inauguration. Global elitists.
This guy's just anti-Trump, whatever. So Trump single-handedly cut drug prices. And it's a swipe at Europe because you have to understand how Europe can offer low drug prices, because that's always a swipe at us, right? Oh, I go to Europe and I get these drugs for 5 cents and all these. Like I talked about when I went to Rome and I had a bad sinus infection. And I was like, I need decongestant. The guy's like, here's a decongestant. Here's another thing. Here's 5 things of cough drops. It's going to be great. And I loved it. Back to Rome in August. I'm buying so much decongestant, I might be a drug runner. Anyway, U.S. President Donald Trump said Monday he would slash drug prices so they match costs abroad, accusing the brutal European Union in particular of forcing pharmaceutical companies to lower prices on its turf. What says Mr. Trump? President Trump said that he signed an executive order at the White House that drug prices should fall by at least 59%, in some cases as much as 80% or 90%. And it's interesting because it's one of these things that we have here in the US, these companies, right? Your Pfizer, all the drug companies, they bake into the cost the US health system, meaning they can charge whatever they want on it. And through the drug system and through the insurance system, they'll get it back. Not this time. And then they go to Europe and they're like, well, since we're getting our money back from the US health system, we'll just give it to you guys at a much, much cheaper cost instead of actually making it even for everybody else. Under the plan, Mr. President Trump aims to implement a most favored nation policy that pins the cost of drugs sold in the U.S. to the lowest price paid by other countries of the same drug. Whoever is paying the lowest price, that's the price we're going to get, said. The U.S. president's plan will count mainly on the goodwill of pharmaceutical companies to negotiate their prices and could face legal challenges, as did a similar proposal President Trump pushed during his first term. Which, some people are going to get mad at this, and they're going to be like, oh, this is price controls. Oh, this is socialism. Let's see what this lady has to say about it.
Are sulking in trade even as the rest of the market is rallying. What's going on? Well, blame it on Trump. The US president has dropped a bombshell as he vows to slash prescription drug prices by 30 to 80% immediately through an executive order. Now, posting on Truth Social, Trump said that the US will adopt a most favored nation pricing policy.
Sorry for the accent.
Meaning America will only pay the lowest price that any country pays for the same drug. So what does this mean for Indian drug makers?
Oh,
companies like Sun Pharma.
I don't care about Indian drug makers. Go away. Thing by Trump. Because President Trump has said American consumers have been treated like suckers and cites particular costs of obesity-related drug Ozempic, which he says are vastly higher than in Europe. He blasted the EU over drug prices, alleging that the 27-nation bloc forced pharmaceutical companies to lower their costs in its territory. And they do it. Yeah, she did. They do it because they know that the U.S., you and I are going to pay for the R&D and all that other kind of stuff because of our healthcare system. Because it's so bloated and the insurance companies are so terrible, and it's not a great for them. So it's nice, and I'm glad that they're doing it, and I think it needed to be done. I know people don't like it, but it's something that will be huge for people in the long term. And I like it. I think it's a good call. So President Trump said he would also order an investigation into countries that extort drug companies by blocking their products unless they accept lower prices. President Trump added he was also doing this against the most powerful lobby in the world, the drug and pharmaceutical company. And if you think that's a lie, just watch Fox News for 15 minutes. Every commercial, there's at least 4 major drug ads in it. Look at your sporting events. Sporting events are sponsored by major drug companies. The drug lobby is one of the most, if not the most powerful in all the world. And we've just kind of accepted that drug prices are awful here because just like with economic protectionism, well, I guess we can afford it. So we'll pay the higher prices and everybody else can get the benefits of these drugs after there are indeed here in the US and after we have to pay the higher cost for it because, we have to. Well, why should any of these other companies or why should these countries not be allowed to do so? Anyway, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also caused controversy for his skepticism. I don't care about any of that. Anyway, we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to be interested to see how Congress, right? FM radio is nothing but male enhancement products and testosterone advertisement. My man, Jason Whitlock, who I love Jason Whitlock. I watch him every day. I love Fearless. I'm a member of the Fearless Army. Whitlock, what's up, man? But even he's doing Blue Chew now. He's doing Blue Chew advertisements. If you know what it is, you know what it is. If you don't look it up. It's a huge, huge lobby with a lot of money to spend, and it's going to be interesting to see how the pharmaceutical lobby responds to this executive order, how it responds to Trump trying to make prescription drugs affordable for you and I, because the European Union loves to wag in our face about their drug prices and all these other things while not having to deal with the back end, the R&D and the costs for it. We're paying the costs for it, just like we're paying the military costs for most of the European Union as well. We pay for their military, we pay for their drugs, we pay for all these things. Why not level the playing field a little bit And you can love or hate Trump all you want. I'm going to give Trump a neutral on this because, right, I'm going to do the classic middle. It's not up or down. I like it. The only thing is I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to stick long term, because I know there's some members of Congress that are like, let's codify this into law and let's push this through. Smart Democrats are going to get on board with this because they'll be able to do it. People like Bernie Sanders are going to lose their minds because this has been one of his central campaign slogans for how many years? It's the drug companies and the pharmaceutical companies with the billionaires and all their money. What are you going to do now? So we'll see going forward how this actually is handled. So medium Trump, neutral Trump, not good or bad, only because I don't know how this is going to shake out long term. I don't know if this thing's going to get absolutely smoked in Congress because the pharmaceutical money is going to pour billions of dollars into it to get judges and all these other people. The medical lobby is going to probably come out and say, this is a terrible idea because it's going to. We'll see. I think it's a good idea by Trump. I like the idea by Trump. I just don't know how sustainable and how much of an impact this will have long term. That's why it's kind of like, I like it. I think it's all long overdue. It's one of these issues like gun control, abortion, and all the other ones that the left and the right have been playing with the emotions of people because they can. All right, this is RicCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Yeah, should have been a little better on that one, but it is what it is. Next up, another good Trump. I like this. I'm going to give Trump a good one on this simply because the left will say, oh, well, Trump caved. Trump caved. He didn't do right. He had this war with China and now they stopped. Well, it is what it is in this regard. So let's at least, I do have an actual correct video on this one. And then it's not an Indian lady this time. Sorry about that. No, not this time. Let's see. Where is it? I know I actually downloaded it. You guys come here because I'm prepared every single day. Right? I downloaded it. I think I did. Maybe I didn't. So the left is going to tell you that Trump choked, that he started this trade war, and now he's not able to finish it up, which is incorrect. The whole point of these negotiations, the whole point of this entire thing was to get the Chinese back to the table so they could actually get some of this stuff done, to get some of these things taken care of, to actually work for the American people, instead of actually saying, well, you guys are going to have to once again pay this, or you're not going to have to be able to do this. Here it is. This is CNBC, so take it with a grain of salt.
This marathon talks over the last 2 days, 8 hours of discussions on Saturday, several hours more yesterday, and they've yielded a major breakthrough. As you noted, we've seen the U.S. and China now agree to slash tariffs for 90 days. So both sides have agreed to cut tariffs by 115%. In terms of China's tariffs on U.S. goods, it's now going to come down to 10%. The U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods going to drop from 145% to 30%, because you've still got some levies on fentanyl in there. During the 90 days, the Trump administration, Secretary Scott Bessent, saying the two sides will negotiate. The U.S. will continue moving toward a more balanced trading relationship.
So this is what the deal is. People in the media and people on X who are now, economic advisors. Then last week they were scholars in Catholic doctrine. Now they're scholars in economic policy again. Will tell you, well, this is a terrible idea. Trump lost and he's an idiot. Blah, 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 blah. You put 145% tariffs on the Chinese to tell them that we're actually serious now. We're actually trying to get back to making this work. And now they have 90 days. The tariffs aren't over. They're paused. I.e., if nothing comes out of it, guess what? Tariffs go right back on and we go back to square one. That's how negotiations work. Most people who don't know how to haggle over a car don't understand that you need to use these things to get people to the negotiating table and reestablish some kind of trade relations. Because right now the Chinese have the entire upper hand because for so long we've just been so deferential to China, and China's going to be the next superpower despite the fact that they have a worse demographic crisis than we do, and that they're just going to be an economic superpower despite the fact that they are they do not consume their products, they only make products. It's a maker economy. There's another word for it, but I'm an idiot, so I don't know what it's called. There is a consumer economy, which is us. And then there is a creator economy, which is the Chinese. They create all this cheap crap. And then we consume it. And that's how they work. Factories were in trouble. Factories were shutting down in China. They were starting to have a little bit of economic unrest. The tariffs would work if people understood that Trump's long-term goal, me too, my friend Dean, I would absolutely do it as well. The tariffs would work long-term. You're not going to put 145% tariffs long-term. That's insane. Nobody's doing that. But you keep them on there so you get somebody to actually come to the negotiating table. Okay, we'll take it from 145 to 30% because we still got to work on that fentanyl stuff. And so we start the 90-day pause. This is a good thing. Most people who don't understand economics will tell you it's a bad thing because A, they're anti-Trump, and B, they don't know how to do this stuff. So the impending disaster of trade freezing tariffs on Chinese imports to the U.S. has been averted, but like a Chinese cargo ship anchored off the coast, it's not gone entirely. Chinese and U.S. officials issued this joint statement Monday morning, informing they would, despite mutual assurance tariff threats as high as 245% on some Chinese imports and 125% flowing the opposite direction, trade relations between the two countries have never been better. Because the people that actually know what they're doing they're like, yeah, this is not a big deal. I know everybody's freaking out because they're like, oh my gosh, my Chinese crap is going to be, instead of $10, it's going to be 25. And I get it. You know, any tick in price, in a price increase in this economy, you feel. But this is something that has to happen for a long-term benefit, which I think a lot of people, Americans aren't used to discomfort, which is Trump's biggest roadblock. Quote, recognizing the importance of sustainable, long-term, and mutually beneficial economic and trade relationships, both countries have agreed to ditch the trade war escalation, leaving tariffs from both nations on the other at 10%, but only for 90 days. The order does not rescind Trump's 20% tariff from earlier this year meant to punish countries involved in the fentanyl trade, leaving total U.S. tariffs at 30%. So the joint statement is likely to be good news for U.S. consumers worried about facing bare shelves, and for American ports that have noticed considerable slowdown in traffic. Whether they'll change things for the tech industry remains another thing. What this article doesn't say is this is also a good thing for the Chinese because they were starting to shut down factories. Their production economy, their production was starting to dry up. Trump's trade war and tariff on Turner, where much of the world's tech is made, has put the IT industry into a slate of limbo with projects frozen due to budget uncertainties and so forth. The 90-day pause may put products back in the shelves for the time being, but whether expensive IT investments and job markets will recover is less certain. These things have to be done because we put ourselves in such a terrible trade position with a country like the Chinese. The only way you fix it is with a little bit of short-term pain. And as RicCast is 100% in favor of economic protectionism. This show is 100% and will defend economic protectionism at all times because it's necessary, because we saw during the cough jab how detrimental it is to rely on one country for all your stuff, especially when we have the means to make it here. And anybody that's smart understands that economic protectionism is a necessary evil, and it's absolutely needs to be done. So people are going to tell you Trump lost, Trump's an idiot, This is a 90-day pause so they can actually negotiate some kind of fair trade deal. Will it go back up to 125%? Probably not. Will the Chinese tariffs maybe go from 10% to 15% or whatever the case may be? Both sides will walk away, hopefully, satisfied moving forward. Because the last time an administration that was not the Trump administration sat down with the Chinese, if you remember, it was in the first couple months of Joe Biden's administration, where the Chinese up in Anchorage, Alaska, you can look it up, just browbeat and just absolutely slapped around the Secretary of State for Joe Biden. And that's not the case now. They understand that you are going to be dealing with somebody that will punish you for taking economic advantage of these United States. So good Trump. I'll give Trump a good Trump on that one because it needs to happen, guys. It needs to happen. I know people don't want to hear it, but if you want things to get better, if you have an infection, it's going to hurt before it gets better, right? Your body has to fight off the infection before it can get better. And if you look at the trade imbalance that we deal with, you're going to have to fight off this infection. That is the trade imbalance before you can get it better in the long term. All right, this is RicCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, do all the fun things. If you like what we're doing here, if you like my opinion on stuff, if you like to be a part of the conversation, which I want you to be, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment wherever you are, whether that is Rumble, YouTube, Getter, Facebook, and my one guy on Twitch. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at our next story. Let's have some fun here. So this is kind of fun, kind of funny, because once Pope Leo the 14th was announced, everybody ran. Laura Loomer, the Quartering, all those guys. No offense to the Quartering or any, Tim Cass at least had Mary Morgan on, who's a Catholic, and Lisa, I forgot her last name, who are Catholics, that were at least able to give some context. The problem with conservative media, and I'll even throw this, Steve Bannon and Jack Bosevic, they were throwing some stuff out today that I didn't like. It wasn't really great. Steve Bannon and those guys, they're good on the MAGA stuff. Whether you like them or not, they're good on the MAGA stuff. Steve Bannon is one of the premier voices in MAGA. But the stuff they were talking about today and all these other things, they just don't get it. And that's right. This show right now, as of May 12th, is a Pope Leo the 14th Stan account. We are big on the Hampton Inn, Waffle House. There was a third one. And Pope Leo the 14th. We are stands for that. And everybody was like, oh, he's a open borders liberal. Blah, blah, blah. And then you see stories like this where it's like, his brother. And if his brother has these opinions, Pope Leo may not share them 1-to-1, but there is a tendency if you come from those houses. We always talk about nature. If he comes from the same household, odds are that he may not share this opinion of Nancy Pelosi, but he is not the open borders psycho open borders enthusiast that Francis was. Now, people will come after me. What about his comments on the synodality and the synod? Let's see what he does with it. He said he was going to continue Francis's idea. His pontificate's not going to be over in 4 years. He's 69 years old. He could be in the chair for 20 years. What he starts, remember, Pope Leo the 13th started one way, and he ended up writing the St. Michael prayer and wrote some great things. We don't know yet, so stop. And this is a Francis derangement syndrome free zone. Don't come at me about Francis. Francis is dead and buried. Okay, this is the pontificate of Pope Leo the 14th, and I will not weigh down the pontificate of Pope Leo the 14th with Francis. It's not fair to him, so I won't do it. Anyway, this is funny. This is pretty funny. Pope Leo's brother shared a profanity-filled post about Nancy Pelosi. Of course, he's from Florida, so, you have him, and then you have the Florida man. Of course, Pope Leo the 14th, the first American pope, his brother would be from Florida. That's right, Lou. We as Catholics, at the end of the rosary, we have the intentions for the Holy Father and the Holy Mother Church. I did it this morning. I hope you did too as a Catholic. Pope Leo the 14th has two older brothers, one of whom shared numerous pro-Trump posts online, including a video that referred to Nancy Pelosi as a drunk, which is, by the way, a mortal sin, combined with a awful word. We can't say that here. We're not going to say it, but it's kind of funny. Louis Prevost, 73, the pontiff's eldest brother, is a MAGA supporter through and through who dislikes Democrats, including the former Speaker of the House, the Daily Beast reported. One of his reposts is a video of Pelosi from 1996 with the caption, "These blanking liberals cry about tariffs is just unreal. They do not know that there's this thing called a video. Just listen to what this drunk blank word had to say in the mid-90s before her husband had blankety blank." like I said, Pope Leo called his brother. There's the famous there's a video out there where the Holy Father's brother didn't answer for 2 or 3 times, and then he finally answered, and Pope Leo was like, "Why didn't you answer your phone?" So clearly they talk, and they were talking before the conclave. Pope talks to his brother. Now, I'm not saying they share their political opinions one to one. I don't share the same political opinions that I share with my brother and my sister, but that's coming from the same household. Now, some of you are going to be like, Rich, this is insane cope, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying. Just be easy. In another post, Lewis called for Democrats who met with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky to be arrested for treason. He also wrote that Europe should, quote, go their own way into complete socialism and ultimately communism, suggesting the U.S. return to a form of isolation. Lewis also loves J.D. Vance's debate. He loves J.D. Vance. This dude is about as MAGA as it gets. And he's talked to his brother. Yeah, that's true, G-Money. You can have different political opinions. That's why I'm saying it's not a one-to-one. But if he doesn't share the political opinions of his brother, you know that Leo at least understands the positions of the opposite side. Pope Francis did not. Pope Francis came from Argentina, grew up in the liberation theology, grew up in all of that stuff. Pope Leo, at least you have to give him some kind of grace, obviously because he's brand new to the pontificate, and to the fact that he has family members that potentially have different viewpoints, which means he at least understands where they're coming from, which may be why he will be more, what's a good word? Kinder, more receptive to people that he doesn't share. A lot of people, myself included, these first early days. Now, this may be for naught in the future. I come to look like a fool, but I'd rather look like a fool supporting the Holy Father than to be one of these Francis deranged syndrome lunatics that just because the Pope didn't, Pope Leo XIV didn't rescind Traditionis Custodes, which my Latin's terrible, so you know what I'm talking about. It's the thing that penalized the Latin Mass. Because they didn't get rid of that immediately, he's obviously a left-wing lunatic. I don't believe so. All right. Lewis, who lives in Port Charlotte, Florida, told the New York Times that he is a conservative who disagrees with his papal bro on some topics. Quote, gee, it's just like yesterday I was throwing him down the stairs and now he's Pope, unquote. I think he's going to be similar to Pope Francis, but maybe not so much liberal-minded, flexing the church's rules quite so much. I think he'll be a little bit more conservative. So that's what it is. He may, and I know some people are like, oh, you just like it. A gentler hand is still bad. I think it looks like Pope Leo is going to look for a way to heal the divides in the church. His use of Latin is very promising, and it could be a very good thing. He didn't come in with a blowtorch and just be like, everything's repealed immediately. Rah! Which, by the way, to my conservative bros, Sarah, Burke, Pizzaballa, none of those guys would have done that either. You probably would have heard a very similar tone in these first days from a Pizzaballa, from a Sarah, from a Burke that you're hearing from Pope Leo XIV. People want to make the pontificate the same as the presidency. Like, you got to get this done. You got a first 100 days. He's got potentially 20 years. Let the man cook. But he may not share them, as G Money appropriately pointed out and was said in this article. He doesn't share all of the same opinions as the Holy Father, and they don't, because they're two of the same people. But there's at least a viewpoint that understands where it's coming from. Now, of course, I'm a Pope splainer. I guess I might as well just put that on the resume. I'm a Pope splainer right now. Blah blah blah. Let it be. I'm fine being a Pope splainer while in the early days of Pope Leo XIV. So, interesting enough, his brother is one of us, you could say, and That may be something. I don't know. I don't think he's like a traditionally minded Catholic. He's probably a Novus Ordo Catholic to the extreme. Guy probably goes, I don't know. But at least there is a dialogue. There's somebody who's conservative in his circle. Francis did not have anybody in his circle that was conservative. Nobody. At least with somebody who is aware of the MAGA movement is in his circle that he talks to. That is a potentially good thing. And I think people just need to calm down and let the Holy Father cook. Give him a chance to make this his own pontificate. He said he's going to continue to do. I'll worry about that when that bridge is burned to the ground and blown up. There's a great video from Steve Cunningham's Sensus Fidelium that he put out Saturday night. That said obedience is not optional. And it's a traditional Catholic priest. And if you're not a Catholic, this is, we do our Catholic stuff here on RicCast. It's a traditional Latin Mass priest telling you that your obedience to the Pope is not optional. And I know my evangelical brothers and sisters watching on Grindr right now, not Grindr, Getter. I saw Grindr because, where was it? Here, that got in my head. That's why some of you guys are going to say things. Hold on. I saw it right there. That's the word that was in my head. Everybody on Getter, my Getter folks may be like, what's going on with, we don't understand. We're not, right. That's going to get clipped. That's going to get clipped. Whatever. Maybe. So we as Catholics, Freud, maybe. My Getter people, as Catholics, we believe that Pope Leo occupies the same chair that St. Peter. That lineage is traced right back to when our Lord and Savior said to Peter, "You are the rock, and upon this church, we will build it. You're the rock upon this church will be built on." I know. Whoa. You know what? It happens. My wife's like, what? So anyway, we believe that Pope Leo is a direct descendant of, in that lineage, to St. Peter. We are obedient to it because we are obedient to the Holy Father. And that's why I'm leaning into defending Pope Leo right now, because Pope Leo is I had my problem. Enoch said a really great quote at one point. Had a lot of problems with Francis, but he was still the spiritual father, and it made it really difficult. Hopefully, Pope Francis's legacy will not be continued 1-to-1 with Pope Leo, and that's why we pray for him. And hopefully, nobody's on Grindr, especially me. All right, folks. Oh man. Oh, that was fantastic. This is RicCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. We didn't go off the rails. We went back to the future, like straight off the bridge on that one. I knew it. That's what most people are going to say. I knew it. Anyway, let's get to our last story of the day. A little bit of entertainment news here. Jon Voight, Hollywood Studios, and Union penned letter to Donnie T calling for expanded, I can't see it because of the stupid ad, incentives, but they did not mention tariffs. So leaders of Hollywood's unions and representatives of major studios joined Jon Voight in penning a letter to Donald Trump calling for an expanded film and TV production incentives. What was left unmentioned in the letter was Trump's proposal for a 100% tariff on films produced in other countries. This letter said, "We appreciate and thank you for the support you have shown the industry. We also appreciate your understanding of the need to increase domestic film and television production to bring American jobs and seeking your support for the inclusion of 3 film and television priorities in the reconciliation package currently being drafted by Congress." The whole issue with this, and Film Threat had a guy on last week. He was a director, and he talks about how LA is becoming a ghost town because it's impossible to work there, because you got to deal with the state government. Then you got to deal with the municipalities. Then you got to deal with, oh, I want to film here. Well, I got to pay this guy. Oh, I got to film here. I got to pay this union. It is so steeped in corruption and greed that I don't know if you can do anything at the federal level because it's a state issue. It is a state problem. And the tariffs, people are trying to even say, Trump, I don't know what you're going to tariff, because somebody brought up a great point on, once again, I was watching Film Fret. They had a versus thing, and they got this guy called Script Doctor. He was right. He's like, if I buy an American camera and I fly it to London and I film with that American camera in London, you can't tariff it because it's an American camera. If I bring American actors to London and we film in London or in, Egypt or in wherever, and then we bring it back, those are Americans. You cannot, that is technically an American production. Are we tariffing like the Canadian independent film that's made in Canada or the Japanese? Or what good is that? That's not bringing back American jobs. The problem with this entire thing is Trump's limited knowledge of the film industry and how it works, and his desperation to try and save Hollywood, which I said at the beginning is kind of psychotic, because Trump is hated by these people outside of like John Voight and Sylvester Stallone and like Mel Gibson and like 5 other people. But Trump can't save Hollywood. It's dead. It's a dying industry. It may move somewhere else. And let's say you want to make more films in America, they'll just make them in Georgia or Kentucky or Texas or Illinois, where there are larger film credits in Georgia, in Illinois, in a lot of these places than in London or Canada. So what may happen is he may spur more production here in these United States, but not in Hollywood, because Hollywood has 50, 60 years of corruption that you would just have to say, you can't, if they want to film on this street or on this lot, you can't charge them extra money for it, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. And that's something that's not going to work. Liberals come with the movie industry wherever it goes. That's why, that's another great point. Because the film, remember the heartbeat bill that Brian Kemp of Georgia signed. Remember that. What was one of the first industries that said, I think it was even Marvel or Disney said, we're not going to film in Georgia if the heartbeat bill is here. So maybe, what do you do? The film industry is rotten to its core, unless, and they've been talking about this for years. Zachary Levi, there's always an actor or two that talks about, hey, we're trying to create a studio in Texas. We're trying to create a studio here. We're trying to build up our own alternative film industry. The problem is eventually they run out of funding. And also, the barrier to entry is lower now because of places like YouTube and Rumble and others where you can upload movies and you can upload streaming services. Like Angel Studios is your best bet. I know some guys in the comment section don't like Angel Studios because it's run by Mormons, but it's the best bet you're going to get for American type content at this point. Your question is, do you want to give your money to Mormons or do you want to give it to Hollywood? Some of you are like, I won't give it to either one. And that's your right. But that's what you're looking at. Angel Studios right now is probably your best bet at some kind of alternative conservative media outlet that's going to produce films. And the reason they're even in the picture is because they got lucky with Sound of Freedom. Those things, I mean, their second film, Cabrini, which is a Catholic movie, it essentially flopped. It didn't really do well in theaters. Now, the movie King of Kings came out and it's made like $60 million. It's done generally well. It's actually still in theaters. It's May. Easter was 3 weeks ago? But still, trying to bring it back. John Wayne is not walking through the door. Ronald Reagan is not walking through the door. The chance to keep Hollywood conservative or have Hollywood make USA type films or patriotic films, it died with not McCarthy. Who was the guy? Who's the trial? Who's the guy that did the trials? Was it McCarthy? McCarthy trials. The Red Scare. Once that was nipped in the butt, Hollywood just continued to just rapidly become a cesspool. And then you had the introduction of foreign money, Chinese money, Qatari money, all this money flowing in to fund these productions because Hollywood is going bankrupt. So they need funding from outside sources. Hence, you have those types of places. Joseph McCarthy, thank you. Yep, Joseph, once the McCarthy trials ended, and the trying to root out communists ended, that was it. It was going to eventually get to this if it is, it is. I don't even care. Yeah, it used to be a conservative state. It used to be the golden state. It used to be the crown jewel, really, of these United States. And you're right, Dean, it did die in the golden age. It just eventually came to this point. Streaming and all these other things. So yeah, Trump, it's great that you're trying to do it, but it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. There's way too many barriers, and there's economic barriers to making Hollywood legit again because of all the corruption and filth. And there's cultural barriers because Hollywood is a bubble, not Hollywood, the state, but talk about it as an industry. Hollywood, the industry, is so rotten to its core with liberal principles that it's virtually impossible to fix it unless you want to support places like Angel Studios. And some of you guys are like, I'm not going to do it. And that's your right. I'm not saying it's bad, but those are your alternative options. So they can try to talk about these incentives. There are states with incentives already. Now, unless you want to force California to wipe off 60 years of corruption in one foul swoop, which I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know if there's really any long-term solution to the crisis, you could say, that the entertainment industry is having, simply because I don't think they want to fix it as long as they can get funding from other sources. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode of RicCast, a very, very personal RicCast for some of you that are watching. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Do me a favor on your way out. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Leave me a comment in the comment section. And we will see you all tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, the 13th of May, here on RicCast. I will talk to you all then. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate every single one of you for the time you give me. God bless. And until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.